This is the Out of Order podcast, cutting through the political chat.
Hello and welcome to the Out of Order podcast. I'm Grace.
And I'm Jack.
And I'm eating some fish and chips.
Yeah, we both are, aren't we? It's a delightful Friday. I'm sure that's what our listeners are here for.
Yummy. It's like ASMR.
Yeah, that's what this podcast has become, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just me
devolved.
making funny noises into a microphone.
It was me making funny noises last week, if we remember.
There we go. So, PMQs. The
Indeed.
5th of the 2nd, 2020.
First one after Brexit.
Indeed.
Hooray.
Opinions?
It actually made me really angry this week.
Yeah.
I can't... I'm losing faith a little bit in the PMQs system. I can't take it anymore. It's driving me a little bit mad.
What was it about it that made you angry?
All of it, to be honest. But Jeremy and Boris spent the best part of...
That was my point. Let's start from the beginning.
With your point. All right, well, by all means, go ahead.
That they spent half the time just between them two. Jeremy repeated the same question 3 times.
Yep.
Fair enough, I understand that he wants to get the point across and he wants to get an actual answer, but he's flogging a dead horse with Boris. He's not going to get it.
No, he's not.
He's not.
Particularly on the issue that we're talking about, which was the COP26 climate summit in
Exactly.
Glasgow. Famously not one of Boris's favourite topics, the environment.
No.
So.
I think there was
like a bit of a
other
waste of
things he
time.
could have brought up there,
Yeah.
so I understood what he was trying to achieve, but he didn't achieve it. So.
I don't think he appreciates the value that the 6 questions he gets has.
No.
Because he could ask 6 different questions if he wanted to about 6 different issues, but it seems to be post-election that he's just honing in on one issue a week, which is fine, but it's not really getting anywhere, is it?
No.
As we've seen.
Exactly. I think general opinions of how they both fared this week was that Boris was just very aggravating on a lot of different levels for me, and Jeremy was lacklustre.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
So what were your main points, your main takeaways or aggravations even?
The thing that annoyed me most was actually the very first question before Boris and Jeremy started, which came from the Conservative MP Jamie Wallace for Bridgend, who basically went off on this very Boris-like spiel about, now we've left the EU, we're taking back control, like we've got control of our borders again, can we start seeing funding in places like Bridgend? Which really annoyed me because it fed exactly into the Johnson narrative that the EU is to blame for places like Bridgend being badly well off in the first place.
Right.
Which it's just not true. It's really not. Like, you can't blame the European Union for the government not giving funding, our British
Westminster
government.
devolves the funding.
Exactly, to places like Bridgend. And you can't just blame the EU for that and like, the rising tide of globalism is going to make people poor. It doesn't work. But that's exactly what a part of the Leave narrative was in 2016, that being part of the EU is somehow restricting what we can spend our money on and telling us how we can fund places. And that means that Bridgend isn't getting its funding, so we have to leave the EU.
I think
it's just not right.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it would be interesting to maybe follow up next week on how much Bridgend received from the European Social Fund
That's a good point, actually,
regional funding. So that could be quite interesting.
I'll be honest, if I hadn't left this to the very last minute, i.e. on the train into recording this podcast this morning, I'd have probably had a look.
Yeah.
But that's my bad.
You're going to get sacked if you carry
on.
on.
I am the slacking member of this team. Only one of us is pulling out weight, and it's definitely not me.
On the theme of Wales, one of my highlights was from Hywel Williams, Plaid Cymru, for Arfron. One of my best mates is from North Wales and is very Welsh nationalist, and she will probably hate me for
one of
the
my
way I've
housemates
just
is as well.
said all of that.
Yeah, you're getting crucified on social media.
Yeah, he was talking about transport in North Wales and bus services. Now, I have had first-hand experience of this. Transport in North Wales is horrendous, and if you don't have a car, you're screwed, basically.
You are the transport expert on this podcast, in fairness, as your Twitter feed demonstrates.
I know,
this is very much your field.
I just transport myself everywhere. Hywel said...
Not on buses, you don't.
Hywel said that... What was the government going to do to improve transport in North Wales? And Boris came back with a very Boris-like answer and said that they were reforming transport, well, specifically bus services, all over the country. But my question is, will Wales be forgotten? Because having spoken to Merchain, that came out weird, Merchain, my
Got
friend.
there in the end.
Yeah.
It's good you know your own friend's
It
name.
came out very weird, sorry. Moraine. Yeah, having spoken to her about funding and just, well, the fact that Plaid Cymru has an MP in this area and how much they've grown over recent years,
Absolutely, yeah.
it's just evidence that they're not getting what they're promised,
No.
again, like Bridgend. And I think parts of Wales are forgotten about very often. So that'd be interesting to see if anything comes of that, which
absolutely.
I doubt it will.
That wasn't the only buses question this week, though, was it? There was a few. I think I counted 3.
Free buses.
There was one from an MP in South Yorkshire whose name I've forgotten. He was a Conservative, I believe. He was saying about first bus services that obviously we have to deal with as well in West Yorkshire and Leeds. His question was something about he was saying that First are constantly letting people down, and is our Prime Minister... It was a Conservative question to a Conservative Prime Minister, so obviously it was phrased in a way that was easy for the Prime Minister. It was something like, does the Prime Minister agree that buses are of like importance to our communities? Like something that rudimental.
I mean, transport in
Yes.
the north generally is screwed, so that all needs to be reformed.
Would you like to go
No,
into that,
I'm not
Grace?
going into it. Any other main points for you?
I mean, it was the Boris Jeremy thing was nice in the fact that they took on the environment question. I'm not going to deny that, but it was just very...
Called him out on being a climate denier up until 2015.
He did, didn't he? Mm-hmm. The thing that annoyed me most, I think, about all of that was every time Jeremy went to ask a question, he was phrasing his questions in such a way that he took the wording of the president of the committee who he sacked, Claire O'Neill. Mm-hmm. So she was going to be president of the COP Climate Summit. And then for some reason Boris sacked her, and it's not entirely clear why. Jeremy's questions were phrased in the way that Claire O'Neill said this, and then a question on the end of it. And every time Jeremy said something like, that's not what his minister said, or his minister said this, all the Conservatives were just like braying like hyenas and booing him.
Well, this is the thing. I thought throughout that little discussion, there was nothing from the Speaker this week.
No, there wasn't.
Nothing at all. And there was many times when I would have expected
John Bercow would have been in there like a rocket.
Exactly. And I kind of think that, and my next point, which was again from a Conservative backbencher, Suella Braverman from Fareham, Conservative Party member, her question about terrorism and the rule of law. That question was so wordy and ununderstandable, it was ridiculous. I mean, I've studied politics now for 4 years. Well, no, 6 years. 6 years.
Yeah.
And I had to look at it and I was like, I have no idea what any of this means. Every other word was something incomprehensible.
Yeah.
This is the problem with politics. It's too hard to digest. If you're not interested in politics, you switch on PMQs, and that's the question that it opens on. You're going to switch it straight off.
Absolutely.
If these are questions for the people, about the people, ask them in like a language that people will understand.
Imagine if there was a podcast that people could listen to where two people break down PMQs to make it more understandable.
But it'd be bang out of order if
it would be such a thing would
they
be
imitated
very out
us.
of order.
It
Yeah,
would.
It would.
So yeah, I just thought that and the point made by that Conservative MP kind of evidenced the need for more consumable politics, because
it'd be nice, wouldn't it?
even if I switched on the TV, and obviously I'm a politics nerd, and that question was on, I'd think, nah, not today. Not today,
Yeah.
Satan. I'm not listening to that.
Satan. No, I don't think anybody would blame you either. It doesn't make for the most entertaining or understandable TV, does it?
Definitely not. Anything else for you?
You know what there was? The SNP leader only got 2 questions, and not one of them was about Scottish independence.
I know he broke the mould.
I mean, can we forget about Scottish independence now then? Does that mean that the issue's over?
He'll be back next week.
Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was
He'll
a
be back
rare one
next
for me in
week.
Blackford, wasn't it?
Yeah. Another one for me was Catherine West, Labour. She's for Hornsey and Wood Green. And she was talking about state school buildings and the cost of education and how poor state school buildings are, poor quality. And she said that it's a worthy investment into people's future, and that people are only going to take pride in their education and do well if the building that surrounds them is good.
Yeah.
Boris responded by saying that there was going to be a £14 billion investment, And we can only do that because we are running a strong and efficient market economy.
Mm-hmm.
That, to me, is austerity.
It's not an answer, is it? I'll give you that. It's certainly not an answer.
It's not an answer, but it just rings austerity.
Yeah.
That's all I could think when he was responding was, well, to put 14 billion in, where are we losing that money?
That was the thing. That was the other thing. You finally coaxed it out of me that rattled me this week. Every answer Boris gave was, we're investing X billions of pounds into something. And at some point, I mean, I would have liked to have done the maths, to be honest, and added up every time he said we're going to invest this much to see how much that came to. Because it was a ridiculous amount of money.
It sounded like what the Conservatives accuse Labour of.
Exactly.
All the time.
Exactly. You can't just invest
Frivolous
in things
spending.
because you'll ruin the economy, was the Conservative thing before the election.
Their mantra.
And now it's
Spend,
magic money tree, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I mean, this point was quite important to me because I don't know about your school, but my school was just shocking in terms of the facilities and just the buildings in general. They were all 1960s, 1970 buildings. My mum and dad had been in those same classrooms.
Really?
It was the same
Wow.
with those same teachers.
Wow.
For most of my teachers, which obviously
That's crazy.
that's not to knock them because they're obviously really good at the job, but the buildings were poor, and it makes you not care.
Yeah, absolutely.
About your education. What were your school like?
As I remember, it was okay. So definitely not anything like you're describing.
No smashed windows covered up with
kind of why I was hoping
wood.
you wouldn't ask me, because now I feel bad.
I've shamed you for
Yeah,
being privileged.
I'm sorry my primary school was okay.
Let's talk about Nadia Whittam's point about the deportation of 50 people.
Oh, the Windrush question, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to take the lead on this one?
Oh, fine. The question was basically, should the 50 people who are about to be deported to Jamaica be suspended until the report about the Windrush scandal is released?
Mm-hmm.
To which Boris Johnson said, I think we'd all agree that it would be okay to deport.
The people of this country will think it is right to deport foreign national offenders, were his words.
We should have that as a clip.
Yeah, we should. But I will just impersonate it for you if you
Please do. Please.
The people of this country. Nah,
oh my God, Mr. Prime Minister.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think to that? Is he setting a precedent?
Well, I mean, I don't know who these 50 people are, and I don't know what they've done or supposedly done, but it's just very dangerous ground, isn't it? It rang to me a very nationalistic kind of, we don't want you here if you're going to commit crime kind of.
Well, her question began with that there had been the wrong deportation
Of other people.
of other nationals before.
True. Well, yeah, Windrush.
And yeah, and she's therefore suggesting that
Is there
these
gonna be
people
another
are going to
Windrush?
be wrongly deported. So are these people offenders, or are these people just people?
I don't know. It's hard. Well, we don't know, do we?
No, we don't.
Fundamentally, we don't know. But it's such a fine line, isn't it? Do you deport foreigners who commit crime?
Well, I don't know the answer.
It's
to
such a
that.
it's such a hard question, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
such a hard question to answer. So I'm gonna do a tactical avoiding that issue and say that
Okay.
I hope there isn't another Windrush.
We'll leave
That's
that
all.
one there then.
So now we turn to the impressions section, which was introduced by Grace last week after she coerced me into doing what I think was a very good impression of Donald Trump. It's on our podcast from last week, and it's only fair that I think, Grace, it's your turn to do one this week.
Okay.
I was hoping you could do your very best Yvette Cooper for us.
I
was
going
going to interview Yvette Cooper. You interviewed her a few weeks ago at the election.
But she doesn't have any standout characteristics, or like, she kind of just talks. She talks like this, I guess.
Well, there you
she
go.
Kind of talks, she
There
kind
we
of
go.
shakes her head. And she
Yvette's in the building.
Well, for the people of Normanton, Pontefract and Castlewood, I really just think I will work in their best interest rather than them, and their vote doesn't actually really count. I'm just going to vote against it anyway. So yeah.
Brilliant. That's all I was looking for.
Brilliant.
I had a full-on interrogation last week, and all I asked of you was 20 seconds.
Well, there you go then.
It was wonderful.
It
Thank
comes
you.
To me
It was
naturally.
see all
Comes to
that
me
worrying.
naturally.
It was wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Tune in next week for more kids.
I think it's going to be me again next week, isn't it? So I'm going to have to brush up. I can see you giving me evils thinking about who you're really going to make me. You're going to really push the boat out this one. It's going to be Jacob Rees-Mogg or someone, I can tell.
It's going to be somebody hardcore.
Oh, good. All right.
So, any things you want bringing up next week that aren't going to get brought up, probably? We make the predictions for next week of what we'd like to be brought up.
What's going to come up next week?
Or that you'd just like to be brought up.
That's a good question. You've caught me off guard. I would probably like to see something. There was a question actually about the Russian this week about the Russian report into interference in our elections, and Boris said that would be released when the intelligence services said they were ready. So hopefully that's next week. I'd like to see that. It won't be. I know it won't be. It probably won't ever be.
Jack will offer them 5 working days to get back to him.
I've threatened them. They have 5 working days or I'll sue.
They're probably listening to this.
I'm sure they are.
They listen to everything. I would like to see some more LGBTQ plus questions.
I feel like I've said that before.
Yes, I have, and nothing ever happens.
I know, right?
So I'm just going to say it again.
Well, speaking of LGBTQ,
yes,
Grace was very brave this week. I don't know if you saw on her Twitter feed, and came out to her family, which I think was very impressive. And it's a very horrible thing to have to do in this day and age because everybody should be accepted for who they are. But you did it anyway. And I'm sure certainly everybody at this podcast, which is just me and you, so me, and everybody at the university and everybody that knows you is very proud of you, Grace. We're very proud of what you've done.
I feel like this is karma for when we did the first episode and I outed you as a Green Party member.
Well, no, this is a good thing. You should be very proud of what you've done.
Yeah.
And I know you got a lot of support for it on social media, so...
Yeah, I got a lot of support on social media. Not so much in real life.
You went viral. You went absolutely viral.
Not in... Yeah. And
but
now, today, Philip Schofield has obviously seen me as a guiding light.
Yeah, he's thought, you know what, if Grace can do it, I can.
I can do it. And yeah, he's come out this morning.
I know we're all very proud of you for doing what you did, so...
Thank you.
I hope you feel a lot more at ease.
I feel a lot more relaxed about my life.
Are you
now.
zen?
I'm more zen, and I just feel like, as I just said about Philip Schofield, if more people actually are their truth and are honest about who they are and who they love or whatever, then it just makes it easier for the next generation because then they don't feel like they have to have an option of lying. It shouldn't have to be an option, and it's so bloody hard, so you don't want to have to do that with your life. It's the worst thing in the world would be to get 20 years down the line and then have not only lied to me but lied to other people that would have been dragged into it along the way. It's a bit like ripping off a plaster, I guess. You feel a lot better once it's done. So,
yeah, now you've done it, so
whoop whoop. A good way to end this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very high note to end on, I think.
So we will see you next week on Friday, and we will be bringing you more politics. I've been Grace.
And I've been Jack, as always.
See you next week.
This is the Out of Order podcast, cutting through the political chat.
You can follow the Out of Order podcast on @podcastoutOf on Twitter, and you can get me, Grace, at Grace E. Pritch. And Jack?
Jack is available on Twitter at Jack_Walker36.
So we're waiting for a new stream of
I can't wait,
now.
honestly. We're going to be inundated. Oh, I've got a notification already.